Hey, welcome to the stream once again. Just like normal, the last couple times I've started to stream, I'm getting some bad frame rates here at the beginning. So it's been calming down. So just bear with me if it's a little rough. But welcome back. I see Heath is here. Good old faithful Heath. I appreciate you being here. Still working on our Celtic busts. I'm trying to get these done by Saturday so they can head off to Gen Con to be examples there for selling some of my busts at the Broken Egg Games booth there. Again, Broken Egg Games is a great company. They're local to me. I know the owner. If you're if you play any games like War Machine, Warhammer 40K, Age of Sigmar, any of those types of games, they sell a lot of gaming aids, tokens, all sorts of cool stuff. So check out their website, see what they got on tap. Actually the owner has a Cousins Foundation for helping raise awareness for PTSD and things like that for Veterans Affairs. And so I actually am donating a painted model to a cause that they were doing a couple weeks ago around July 4th. But anyway, great company. They're going to be selling my busts at Gen Con. If you're heading to Gen Con, say hi to them. Check out these painted models in person. You can even buy them if you want. They'll be on sale along with the unpainted versions. So let's, is Gorilla Wife in chat? Or did you see her in the background somewhere? So just to kind of show you what we're working on. So these are the finished versions. I still haven't put them on their bases yet. That's going to be the last step I do. But this is the finished versions of the two Celtic busts. We're getting pretty good progress here. We ended our last session with base coating the hair. You'll notice that the hair looks pretty blonde at the moment. It's going to be much browner later in the glaze stages, but we've just started working on it. Also, as I said last time, what you're going to find is that the steps and the colors that I use to do the hair up until we get to that glazing stage is actually going to be a really good tutorial for one way to do blonde hair. Again, as I've said in the past, blonde hair is... Oh, she's the one bogging down the frame rates. Yeah, probably. It looks like it's calmed down now. The overall percentage is dropping pretty steadily. So it was up at about 14% frames dropped. So like, about a sixth of every frame was getting lost. That's not good. When you're doing blonde hair, you don't really want to use a lot of yellow. That makes it look very artificial. So the colors I'm using here are much closer to what I would use for blonde hair. So we base coated these last time with SS Camo Medium Brown. There we go. So just kind of a light brown color. Anyway, you can kind of see it on the models. It's really, really light brown. That's what we base coated with. We're going to start our first layer with SS Camo Ochre Brown. So a kind of a khaki color, slightly a little bit mustardy. How was your day, Heath? Paint's very thick out of the bottle. This particular one. At least my batch of it is. So as I apply this layer, just like before, we're building up the lighter colors here. So I'm going to be leaving some of the recessed areas a little bit darker. It's kind of nice with these braids, as you can almost use like a dry brush technique, but more paint on your brush, like a wet brush. Switch to something with a little bit more point. It's just a little bit before my cats normally eat at night, but I went ahead and fed them right before the stream started, because otherwise, those of you with kids at home would have got a little triggered. Like last time, crying cats sound a lot like crying kids apparently. Which is maybe why it's so effective at them getting their food before they're supposed to, huh? So I almost never get as far on these models as I intend to during a painting session. But my goal is we're going to get the hair all done. And then I'll probably do the gold on, or like a brassy, bronzy color on the sword hilt. And then I might just try to finish up this model tonight. And then on the next session, the last session probably then, I will do the axe on the other model, and then do the face paint, if I indeed have the guts to go ahead through with that. So that stream will probably take place sometime during the day on Saturday. I'll do like normal, I'll give a little bit of a notice on Twitter, but I haven't quite nailed down the time. I'm open to suggestions. I should be pretty free that day. I have to work, just work all the time nowadays, but I have to work a bunch this weekend, but I don't have to work at a specific time. I'll just be working from home. So if there's a time that works for any of you guys, just let me know and I'll try to accommodate that. I'm going to go see my parents on Saturday night, so that'd be the only thing, but it'd have to be during the day. Like 7 Central Time. All the talking slows me down. Slows my painting down, or slows my frame rate down. Oh, all the talking slows my progress down. That's why I don't get as much done. Yeah, that's true. It's almost like painting at a game store with friends, though. You know? Hanging out, answering questions. Now, I'd probably be a little more careful with the application of the paint with a smaller scale model, or in a case where the hair wasn't sculpted with quite so much texture. But this hair is very, very textured on the model. So you can kind of get away with almost like using the side of your brush, being a little rougher, and just let the raised contours of the hair pick up the paint off your brush. Like, just kidding, make it earlier because I'll be up earlier than that. Well, our cats wake us up super early. I don't want to be one of those people that always like when other people talk about their kids and I talk about my cats, but in this case, our cats wake us up with the sun, as it happens, all year round. So during the summer, when we have our longest days right now, they wake us up pretty darn early in the morning. Oftentimes what we do is feed them and then try to go back to bed for a little while. Sometimes they let us, but you know who he reminds me of right now, this model? Almost dropped him. He reminds me from Lord of the Rings, that elf that shows up at Helm's Deep in the movie. He's reminding me of that guy right now. Did I do anything exciting today? Well, I actually today woke up super early because I had to do, it's not quite a teacher workshop. There's a school district here in the Phoenix area. Actually, it's a chain, kind of a chain of schools that actually stretches all around the greater Phoenix area and even out into other parts of the state. And they bring me in to lead, for the last couple of years, they brought me in to lead all of their math trainings. And one of the schools kind of grabbed onto me from these trainings and has had me coming out and doing coaching for their math teachers. So I come out once or twice a month and I observe their teachers, and then I debrief with them, give them feedback on their lessons, the mathematical content of their lessons, some ideas, things to think about, things to improve on, help them create like improvement plans and stuff. And do occasionally some extra professional development. Anyway, they were bringing me out for the first time for this school year today. They don't actually start till next week, but their teachers are currently planning for the first week of class, and they wanted me to be there as a resource to help them out, and especially one of the teachers who's taking over all of their honors courses. Provide some guidance for how to structure that class and get through the content they need to get through and things. So I enjoy it. The teachers are at the school and the leadership at the school are really, really fun to work with. They're really good people. Hearts are in the right places. They want to get better. They want to improve. They want to teach meaningful mathematics, all the things you'd hope for. The only problem is that it's a 100-mile round trip for me to get out to the school and back home. And they usually have me come in somewhere between 8:30 and 9, but I can't leave my house to get there at that time because I would go through rush hour traffic and it would take me, it's basically driving across almost the entire Maricopa County I live in, from one end to the other through rush hour traffic. And that's just not happening. So what I always end up doing when they have me come out is I get up really early, I drive all the way to the other side of town, other side of the county, before rush hour hits. And I just go to a Panera Bread Company. I don't know if you guys have those where you're at, but it's just sandwiches and soups and salads, but then they also have breakfast food. And I just get a coffee and I get some breakfast and I just sit there and work on my laptop until I actually have to be at the school. So that was what I did today. Then got home and did a little extra work for my normal day job stuff. This is a 6th grade through 8th grade middle school. When I work at for the regional professional development stuff they bring me in for, that's anywhere from 5th grade through high school. But this particular school that brings me in on a routine basis is 6th through 8th. I worked with this school, I worked with this school last year. It was really, really enjoyable. They had 4 teachers in particular I was really working with. And unfortunately, one of those teachers moved out of state to go live closer to family. Started having kids and wanted to be closer to family. And the other one decided to change subject areas that he taught. So that means that there's some brand new teachers this year, which is fine. I mean, it happens, and I met them today, and I think they're going to be really fun to work with also, but kind of starting from square one with them, whereas the other couple teachers sort of had a year of me. For these 2 busts, by the way, you'll notice I'm doing all the hair the same, but if you kind of look at the finished versions of these, the hair is a slightly different color. So I'm going to get them up to the same place up to a certain point, and then some slight variations on the color later. Well, Arizona's always tended to start much earlier than other places. A lot of the school districts, well, some of our school districts around here have gone to a modified year-round schedule. And the other thing that happens is that about 20 years ago, most of the state kind of dedicated themselves to completing the first semester prior to Christmas break. I know when I was going through school, it used to be that, you would have your fall semester, you'd have Christmas break, and you'd come back for like 3 weeks and then take finals for the first semester, and then you would start the second semester after that. So like Christmas break would be right before, would kind of break up the second quarter of the year. So they made a concerted effort across Arizona to change that so that students take their final exams before Christmas, and then they have the Christmas break, and then they come back and start second semester in January, and then end school in the last couple weeks of May. So here we tend to start early August and go through late May, and we don't go into June. Some of the year-round schools, the more modified year-round schools, they start in July, and then they don't finish until June, but then they have longer spring breaks and fall breaks and winter breaks. All right, so we did all right, next layer we're going to do bron. Minnesota passed a law that school could not start until after Labor Day, and they recently unpassed it. I like that way of phrasing. Yeah, I think it works a lot better to try to finish the first semester. It's kind of more like a college schedule. Yeah, I like it. The one thing that's always tricky here in Arizona, and there's really not a lot of ways to get around it, it's very, very expensive for school districts to cool the buildings during the summer, because it's just so hot here and the buildings have so much volume. So they're always trying to balance how many days you have students in school during the hottest months of the year. So certainly finishing in May before it gets into June helps on that end, but then you're starting in August, the beginning of August, and August is a hotter, more humid month here. There's really almost no good way to do it unless you had a really long summer break and then went to school for 10 hours a day. in the other parts of the year, but that's always tricky. And I know that that's one argument a lot of districts who haven't gone to the modified year round, where they have the longer breaks in the middle of the year, but then a shorter summer break, is because that pushes more school days into the hotter months, which substantially increases all their building costs, their building maintenance costs, or electricity costs. So yeah, this is brawn. I don't know if I really showed it. Just a lighter version of what we just used. This is almost like a flesh tone color, really. I've actually considered throwing this into the mix of some of the paints I use for doing flesh colors. I think it's fit right in with them. Might even start trying this out as a initial color instead of the basic flesh. Try kind of using this in lieu of basic flesh and see what happens. Now, one of the things that you'll notice with the hair, when I go back to the other models I'll show you here, like there's not a ton of really extreme highlights on the hair, like really bright reflection spots. If you look at the sample pictures, these guys' hair is not really like, they haven't been washing it in Suave, for example. It's not really the long, lustrous hair. It's a little bit more dirty, a little more kind of frazzled. And so I'm not putting in like really high, bright reflection points that you get on like really smooth, shiny, styled hair. Yeah, he's saying similar issues in other school districts around the country, like in Minnesota, but their expensive time of year is in the winter with heating. It's kind of funny. Land Corps, a guy named Lance, he works for Beasts of War, although I think they're changing their name. But he lives in Northern Ireland, and he's been commenting a lot lately. It's just been very hot, been hard to paint. Over in that area of the world, it's not all that uncommon for people to not have air conditioners. And I would imagine that there are certain places in the United States, Minnesota might be one of them, but I don't know, where it's not uncommon for people to not have air conditioning units in their houses, like central air conditioning units. They might have just window mounted ones during the months that they need them, but you could kind of get away with it. You suffer a little bit when it gets a little warm, but most of the time it's not too bad. Here in Arizona, in the Phoenix area, like you just can't survive without central air conditioning in your house. And this time of year, it's just almost running like 60% of the day, just to try to keep it from getting super hot in your house. But on the flip side, I could easily, if I had to, get away without having a heater in my house. It doesn't usually get that cold. During the worst time of the year, it will occasionally drop just below freezing in the coldest part of the night. But for the most part, it's not too bad. Just a very different climate. The Suave shampoo comment made him chuckle. think I forgot to do the guy's eyebrows again. When you look at the reference pictures for this guy, he's got some reddish hair in his beard. And he's a little bit of a, he's kind of a redhead, a little bit of a blonde redhead. And his beard's got the most red. So we're going to glaze some kind of a golden red. I'll bring it up here. I actually have a better reference picture that I didn't load into my computer here, but he's got anyway, he's got kind of some reddish blonde in there, so we're gonna add some of that to his final beard. If you can sort of see, there's a little bit of that, like an orangish color. It doesn't show up quite as well on camera as it does in person, but I'll add a little bit of that later. He said that Minnesota gets a little bit of the worst end of everything. Some kind of miserable summers, miserable winters, but they soldier on like good Minnesotans. I think I've mentioned this before, but Arizona, because it really hasn't had a large population up until about the mid 1950s, which is when air conditioning became like a real thing for residential houses. They could start building with it, and allowed people to actually live here. There really wasn't a lot of people who lived here, so really almost all of our population growth has been in the last 50 years, 50, 60 years. So almost everybody who lives here comes from someplace else. There's very few natives. My wife is actually one of the few people you'll meet who's like born and raised and has lived in here, this area, almost like her whole life. But what that means is we get a lot of people from all over the country. And some of the big places we get people from is Minnesota, Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, like that whole little area of the country right there. Lots of people here from there. One of my good friends and close colleagues is from Minnesota, and he's a huge Vikings fan, and always talks about growing up in Minnesota and what it is. So people, they move out here, and then you only have to deal with the crappy summers, but you get the nice winters. So you cut off half of what the bad times that you're talking about. Hey, Jesse, what's up? All right, where are we at here? Birch. So this will be the last of the highlight colors we do. So like I said, you can pretty much follow the same general pattern of colors to get blonde hair. These guys are going to look like, I meant them to be blonde when they're done, before we start doing the glazes. Oh man, sorry to hear that. You miss your paints? Well, hopefully you can be reunited with them soon. Back to the things that matter, like painting. None of this family vacation stuff, come on. The real important things in life. Be honest with us, Jesse. It was Monopoly that was at fault, right? You guys busted out Monopoly and decided to play that. Sweet. Congratulations, Heath. Last night after I finished the stream, my wife and I went out scorpion hunting in our yard and in the green belt behind our house. I must admit that this year I've been really bad about it. And if you don't keep up on it, they start to encroach on the yard a little bit, and then that's when you start getting them in the house. And so, don't tell anybody who is thinking about maybe coming out and visiting us, but we actually found 2 in the house this last week, and that is not a good thing. So I made it a point, or I'm going to be making it a point to be much more vigilant for the next couple months here. So anyway, we went out last night, circulated the yard, walked behind the house into the green belt, and walked up and down all the back fences along behind everybody's house who lives in our area. Killed almost 60 of them. And I'm sure there's more out there. They just hiding in the bushes and stuff. Scorpion hunting is not a problem for people in Minnesota. So, if you Google scorpion blacklight or something like that, you should be able to easily find pictures of what scorpions, especially scorpions that you find around the desert Southwest, the Arizona, I think it's the Arizona bark scorpion. I'm trying to remember what the name of it is, the species we have. But they glow like this weird neon greenish yellow color under a black light. So without the black light, they're almost perfectly camouflaged into the desert landscaping and rocks and the block walls we have surrounding our property. And more out this way. Yeah, so you just shine the black light. You just have we have a really large black light. You just shine it, and they just glow. And like I said, you could be staring at a wall and you don't even see them, and then you shine the light on it, and then boom, they just pop. So unfortunately, evolution has deemed fit to make them glow under a black light. It's good for us. It's bad for them. But yeah. Then there's a special bug spray that you can get that kills scorpions. So you just spray them and then move on, and it kills them within a couple minutes of being sprayed. It's really sad. I always feel bad. I just wish they would not come in our house or anywhere near our house, and then they could just go live their lives in peace. But they're always trying to get in the house and then sting us, sting the pets. Can't have that. So it always makes me sad. Okay. They're living creatures, but I don't know on any other solution. Said, oh yeah, it's night and day. You must have seen a picture of them. But all right, so we've got, I'm going to put this guy to the side. I'm going to focus on good old Mel here. So the first glaze we're going to use is Rock Brawn Red. This was the same color we used for something else. I don't know. This is like a reddish brown. Yeah, exactly. If only we could reason for it. Just stay out of the yard, stay on the other side of the wall, stay out in the green belt. We won't bother you. You don't come into our yard. You can stay out there, eat all the bugs that you want. Unfortunately, I don't speak Scorpion and they don't speak English, so can't reason with them. There was kind of a funny moment last night. We have palm trees, three queen palm trees, and then handful of smaller palm type plants. And you always hear people say that, oh, scorpions will live in those and then they'll be hard to get rid of them. We've got a lot more problems of why they're in the neighborhood. Like I said, they keep talking about the green belt that's behind our house. We have a backyard that has a view fence, and then there's basically just like a giant park behind our house with all sorts of stuff. Well, they have tons and tons of ground cover that's all planted out there. And so you just can never really get rid of them because they just live in and breed out in the ground cover. And you can never really get rid of them. It's just everywhere in our neighborhood. But anyway, people always say that they'll live in the palm trees. And so last night we were walking around, and I happened to make the comment. I start shining the flashlight like on the palm tree, up and down it, and I literally started to say to my wife, you know, I check the palm trees every time, and I've never seen one up here, but everybody always says that they're up here. And I'm like halfway through making this comment, and here comes a scorpion like running down the side of the palm tree. Like, just one of those weird moments. I've never seen one in one of our palm trees before now. I happen to see one right when I make the comment. I think I made this a little too thin. That's the world's tallest dwarf. How's it going, Ghost Section? Welcome to the stream. Getting there slowly. Trying to finish up these busts by Saturday because they are on their way to Gen Con, which is why I'm doing some extra painting streams this week to finish the busts off and get all the videos recorded for them. Yeah, I couldn't afford a ticket for myself, so I just decided to send the busts in my place. Yeah, they're a friend of mine is the owner of Broken Egg Games, and he's going to have a booth at Gen Con, and he's going to be selling the unpainted busts, and he's going to have the painted versions there as samples, but then also sell the painted versions if we get so lucky as to have somebody there who wants them. So he leaves on Sunday. I gotta get all this stuff to him before then. Tomorrow night is one of my normal rock climbing nights, so I won't be able to work on them tomorrow unless something happens and we cancel rock climbing. We actually did that Tuesday this week because we were hitting 117 degree record high temperatures, and we were just like, no, I don't think we're gonna climb in this temperature. Rock gym we go to is indoors, but it's not actually air conditioned. So it's pretty miserable in there. Yeah, exactly. Oh, zing zing. Just said these guys look pretty serious about something. They may not have fun at Gen Con. And Ghost Section said they're angry about Brexit. And then Heath said that there's no customs duties between here and Gen Con, so they'll actually get there on time. Speaking of the first shipment of painted dwarves that headed off to Atlantis Miniatures that were supposed to be there for a convention and had a guaranteed delivery date of 1 week before the convention, and they arrived something like 2 or 3 weeks after the convention was over. Got stuck in customs. C'est la vie. Wouldn't be surprised. Did you order Guild Ball stuff from England? For a short period of time, I thought about getting into Guild Ball, and I actually bought a Fisherman's Team. My buddy was trying to get me into it, and I really liked the Fisherman models, and so he was hanging out over here on a Black Friday a couple years ago, and I guess Steamforge was doing some huge Black Friday sale, and he convinced me to order a team from them, and it was really funny because I ordered the team, like they had the special deal, and then which was like the starter box and tokens and dice and just like the whole thing. But it didn't have, I think it had everything from season 1 plus all the extra things like the tokens and dice and things. And then I had to add the season 2 models to the order, which I did, and I placed the entire order. A few weeks go by, and my order finally arrives. It's like 3 or 4 weeks after it said it had shipped. And it was really weird because the box wasn't sealed very well. It was almost like somebody shipped it out without putting actually tape to close the box off. It was really weird. And of course there was one model, there's a model missing from the shipment, or maybe 2 models missing from the shipment. And so I contacted them. I was like, hey, like took pictures. I was like, here's the condition of the box when I got it. It's missing 2 models. And they're like, oh, we're so sorry. We'll send those out to you right away. Maybe 2 or 3 days go by. and I get another shipment from them. And the box looks identical, except this time it's sealed properly. Same size box though. I open it up and it is my entire order, including the missing models. I was like, what happened? And I went and looked. I looked at the packing slips, and they were dated 1 day apart with the exact same packing list that they were supposed to have. So it wasn't my phone call that prompted them to do this. Basically, what must have happened was somebody was in the middle of pulling that order and packing the box, and somebody else just like closed the box and added it to the shipping pile or something like that. And then they didn't mark it as complete. So the next day, whoever was packing that day just packed a brand new, fresh order. So then, sure enough, a couple of weeks go by, and then I get the couple models that was missing from the box. So I ended up getting, not only at the Black Friday prices, but I ended up getting 2 full identical fisherman teams. It's really crazy. Told them what happened, and I asked if they wanted me to send them back or something, and they said, no. It's more expensive to have them shipped back to them than to just have me keep the models. So what I ended up doing was I went on one of the buy, sell, trade guild ball groups, and I sold the entire team, one entire copy of the team, for close to what I paid for the Black Friday prices. So I ended up having a completely free fisherman team. Painted them all up and decided never to actually start playing the game. So then I sold the painted models too. But it's one of those fluky things. Yeah, so the team I painted, and then there was some guy, I actually think he lived in Minnesota, Heath, who ended up buying the team from me, painted. The only thing I added to it was, or maybe I did, maybe Hag was part of that order too. I might have purchased Hag separately later after that whole event happened, just so that when I sold the painted team, I had like the entire team at that time all painted. Feeling like the shade color I actually might have used as another glaze pass too, because this is not going to make this too much darker than what it is now. Oh, thanks. I have a tutorial up on my YouTube page. I think it's on Twitch also, about how I did the wooden bases for that fisherman team I painted. It's kind of a similar style to what you see me painting for these things, just doing the under texture and then glazing the rich tones back over the top. That was back before I had this nice camera though. I was recording that thing on my cell phone. So I was holding it with one hand and trying to paint with the other hand to demonstrate the technique. There's also a tutorial on my website. That's how I did the kind of greenish blue color for those models. It's kind of a custom mix. But I got asked a few times what that blue was and how I did it. So there's a tutorial for that also. I actually did play a demo game when I went to Las Vegas Open a couple years ago. Went there with some of my friends, and we were signed up to play in some War Machine events, but we knew we weren't going to play all weekend in all the events, so we were thinking about getting into Guild Ball. We printed off the rule book. We printed off the paper dolls. So if you want to try the game, you can get the rules, and then they have like essentially outlines of all the players that you can cut out and stick to bases and try the game out and try new players and things like that. So we printed all that out. We cut it out ahead of time so we'd have it with us. I actually played a demo game. I used the Fisherman team, and since I was mostly just trying to figure out how to play the game, I wasn't really playing it all that seriously. My main goal was, no pun intended, my main goal was to score a goal with the otter, the mascot for the team. So I basically just spent my entire turns trying to set up and eventually score a goal with the otter. And I succeeded. Scored the only goal of the game with Salt. And I was like, that's it. I've reached the pinnacle of everything I can do in Guild Ball. I don't even need to play the game. See. I love the black knot that you put in the bases. First time I ever saw that. Thanks. Yeah, it helps with some of the realism of the wood. I think I did that in, yeah, I've got that on this guy's as well. So I'll show that when I do the wooden handle on that axe for this guy. All right, so we're going to switch over to our darker shadow colors. So starting with brown leather. I'm going to add a touch of black to that. Salt is insane, LOL. I don't know, we were playing with the season 1 rules, and I gathered he was not all that great back then, but I don't know. That was just my entire purpose of playing that day. It's like, I'm going to use this little otter to score a goal. My buddy was trying out engineers in that game, which I also don't think were very good at that time. Or maybe were tricky to play, I don't know. I had grayscales on my small little demo game roster. And he was a beast. He just basically kept taking the ball from everybody. So my friend would get it back. Grayscales would take the ball, try to get it to the Salt to score. Something would go wrong. Engineers would get the ball back. But it was all happening over by the goal I was shooting at. he could never quite get the ball out from back there. I just kept stealing it from him and then trying to give it back to the otter. And finally, eventually, everything worked, and I got the ball in the goal. I might have done it again. I got that too thin. But. So I'm going to start doing the technique of really trying to control my brush strokes a little bit more. So pulling that paint up towards where I want the shadows. Exactly. He said if you win your first game, retire. That way you're like a champion forever. That was my philosophy. And not only did I win, but I scored the winning goal with the otter. I mean, you just literally can't do anything more than that. All these soccer players running around and the otter scores the winning goal. Yeah, he was asking, are seasons like additions for Guild Ball? And yet, yes, they are, and that's what Jesse's saying in there. But also, the seasons occur roughly once per year. I mean, I don't know if they've kept exactly on that pace, but the seasons come out much more frequently than editions for other games. But they're just much more active at updating their rules and trying to keep everything balanced and keep everything fresh. And since they have a relatively small model count, because each team only has like a dozen or so players, maybe a little bit more than that by now, but they keep on top of things and try to keep things balanced and smooth and fresh for each new season. It's also the plot in the backstory for everything. So in the books that come out, they actually have storyline that goes and which team wins the league that year on the story, and what the politics are, what's happening in the background. Players are getting injured and or retiring, or getting murdered, and there's coups happening, and new captains for the teams come in. But they kind of, even with the story like that, they still let you play with the old models. They keep those rules updated too. But at least in the story, certain models can die or retire. Yeah, they do have some, as Jesse's saying, they have some faction swapping. Players go to other teams. Add a little bit more black to this. Yeah, if there's... One of the reasons I bought was because I felt like Guild Ball was the one game that maybe had a chance of getting me excited to start playing something again. But it just didn't, it just never really happened. I'm still just, I don't know, kind of burned out from 20 years of playing various tabletop war games. There's just nothing that's pulled me back in yet. I did have a moment of crazy nostalgia yesterday. Or maybe it was earlier this morning. But you'll appreciate this, Jesse, because we were talking the other day. I was sending you those battle reports that I had written. And when I sent those to you, I just kind of, for old time's sake, I read them. And now I'm trying to remember if all three of them, but at least two of the three of them had the Mountain King in my list. I used to love to run that model, even before he was redone in Mark II to actually be good, when they changed his spray to have assault. Even before that, I just loved playing with that model. I loved running him. I got lots of caster kills with him. Just had so much fun. And so reading those battle reports, I think that's honestly the only thing I miss from War Machine these days, is playing with the Mountain King. I actually used him so much and loved him so much that for my birthday one year, the guys at Broken Egg Games made me a custom 10-inch spray template that had my Arizona Troll moniker on there and had like all these troll blood symbols all over it, and was basically my dedicated Mountain King spray template. And that is actually the only thing I kept when I got rid of all my War Machine stuff. I kept that special spray template. Anyway, I was feeling nostalgic when I was reading those battle reports and just remembering how much I missed playing with that model. Yeah, I saw the Sea King. I got out shortly after they put out the Glacier King, and Glacier King was interesting. But I didn't really get to play with him too much. I stopped shortly after, but I don't know if you ever saw my version of the Mountain King. I spent a lot of time resculpting him. I took off all the chains. So I cut all the chains off of him, resculpted all the parts where there were chains sitting on his skin. Made him a much cleaner looking model. So I'd had chaos in 40k in the past, and I really didn't want that again. I got rid of all the chains and the weird mutant whelps that were growing out of him and stuff like that. Now it's been a while. I don't want to say this and be wrong, but Ghost Section, that's you, Aaron, right? It's been a while since you've been on the stream. I've been thinking that this whole time. You mentioned about Star Wars, so I'm pretty sure that's you. I just didn't want to say it and be wrong. Well, I'm glad to see you back on the stream. How's hobby going for you? And you didn't kill the cat after the episode from knocking all your models and stuff off back in a few months ago, right? Alright, so I'm just about wrapping this guy's hair up. He's going to end up having slightly lighter hair, I think, than the other version, but that's okay. Still looks pretty good. Thanks. Yeah, I liked him better without chains as well. A couple mini commissions for D&D players, so not been getting too much of your own stuff done. A couple models done. The A-Wing. Yeah, I saw your A-Wing post from the other. That's really cool. I've always liked the look of the A-Wing. It's kind of funny. The X-Wing is sort of the iconic ship, but my favorites were always the other ships. Like I always really liked the A-Wing and the Y-Wing. Even the B-Wing is pretty cool, except I always have to laugh when I see it because like it goes into this weird sideways formation, you know, like it rotates 90 degrees and then the cockpit stays stationary, but the ship sort of rotates around it, which is always funny to me because there's no up and down in space. So like the fact that he changes the orientation of the ship makes no difference at all. You just turn your ship. Like it doesn't make any sense. But I always like the look of the other ships better than the X-Wing myself. He's actually looking, before I painted the hair on him, he was having a little bit of a weird Christopher Walken vibe, but he's definitely looking better now that the hair's done. The cat is a creature of furry destruction. On the stream last night, Suliko and Mr. Heath were here, and they kept thinking their babies were crying in the background because my cats were a little needy last night, so they were crying during the stream. Kept setting those guys off. They kept thinking their babies were crying. All right, what do we got? 7:22. We got time. Let's work on the handle. What do you think? Follow the steampunk guy for the coordinates. I will be right back. Let me grab something. I love the wiring. How do you get the beef? It's like a lowercase b, I think, for the B-wing. Yeah, that's why you probably saw the pictures I had of the Lego Y-wing kit, the collector series version that my brother-in-law had. Yeah, like I had to put that together with him. I basically made him invite me over to help him put that thing together because the Y-wing was always my favorite. So that was cool. So this book, maybe this is actually a better way to show it. Scale 75 Steampunk in Miniatures. I think it's about $35, maybe a little bit more. If you buy Scale 75 paints and want like a really good guide of how to use them, this is actually a really, really good book. I don't have a ton of painting books, but this is one that I'm definitely not sorry that I ordered. It's really cool. It's got, obviously things like, how to paint like specific things in their models, like it goes through step by step, tells you the color patterns and stuff to do, but it's really cool because it'll show you like how to do flesh with an airbrush, how to do flesh without an airbrush, how to do metallics, how to do non-metallic metal, how to do like a whole model from start to finish with just a brush, how to do a whole model from start to finish using mostly an airbrush. They're just like really nice variety of things that they have in here. They also, like I said, they have a lot of nice color recipes that way. Some of them are duplicated in the little pamphlets that come if you get the set of 8 paints, like the flesh set or the non-metallic silver set or something. So some of those are repeated here. But one of the reasons I'm showing this to you is because the gold that I'm going to do on his hilt is basically the recipe that they give you here in this book, and I think it's also the recipe that's in the little booklet that comes if you just buy the non-metallic metal gold set. Sorry, I'm making a mess over here. SC11, SC12. What color is SC12? Gobi brown, I think. This is what you get for not having your paints organized. Speaking of Legos, I feel like I'm going through a giant pile of Legos and looking for the missing colors, or the missing blocks. For those of you just tuning in, this is what we do. A 4-hour stream of a chair and a paint palette that we call Bob. Yeah, it always makes for great Twitch streaming when the host just leaves and goes into another room. Doesn't even leave music on for you or anything. I could at least point it to a cat or something. You could at least get something. No, just painting just the back of a chair. So the book is, it's called Steampunk in Miniatures. It's published by Scale 75. So Steampunk in Miniature. It's a really good book. So this first base is a half and half mix of Sahara Yellow and Gobi Brown. Cool. When I'm back to the Naughty Gears Kickstarter, I actually ended up with a second copy of the Steampunk in Miniatures book, and I gave it away on a raffle for followers on Twitter like a year ago or so. I think somebody in Wales won it, which is a little bit funny because the book, I don't know where it was published, but it was shipped to me from Spain. So from Spain to Arizona, and then shipped from Arizona to Wales. You know, could have had a little bit less travel time if it just went directly there. Well, Jesse, I will. It'll be on Twitch, so have a good night. The video will be on Twitch. It should be available, you know, as soon as the stream's over. And of course, I will upload it on YouTube when I get a chance. Twitch makes me wait 24 hours before I'm allowed to upload the video anywhere else. So that's why there's always a little bit of a delay, and then I have to actually remember, if, you know, a couple days later to actually post the video. Now, if you actually look at the reference pictures of the sword from the movie, he's got like a steel hilt, guard, and a pommel down here. But I own one of these claymores myself. And the color on the one I own is much more like the one I painted. I just kind of like the kind of a yellowish gold color. I think it complements the model as a whole and creates some different contrast based compared from the blade to the handle. Colored armor is always fun. Thank you. Yeah, I think it looks better like this too. Yeah, you're doing a Reaper Bones for clients. Says do whatever. Try and decide if to color the armor or keep it silver and just do color on the tabard and tunic. I mean, it just kind of depends if you want to go classic or have a little fun with it. If doing colored armor, I'm always a big fan of red. I think red makes a good armor color. I guess I don't really know what the figure is or what. It tends to scream a little bit more bad guy. Although it depends what you do. If you do like a lot of white in the cloth on the model, then the red armor can be okay. But if you start doing something like red armor and a black cloak or something like that, it starts to read more bad guy. Tempted to work on the sword blade as well at the same time, just so while I'm waiting for things to dry. So the base coat on the sword blade, and I could do all his buttons and stuff too, but those go really quickly, and I'd probably just do those another time. Use graphite is the base coat for the sword. I guess, now that I'm looking at this, I'm wondering if I just kind of did my own thing with this, but oh well. This guy's sword is going to be done painted this way. I almost feel like I actually started with a darker gray. But let's get that going. That's true. He's talking about keeping it more simple, keep it to a smaller color palette. Sometimes you can overdo it with too many different colors, and that's definitely true. You can do that. I think it's especially prominent if you have a lot of bright colors, like very dominant colors. So if you do lots of different variations of the shades, so like, you know, multiple different types of browns, some muted greens, things like that, you can keep everything a little bit more of a muted palette and only have a couple bold colors that stand out. And that's kind of what you want if you have lots of different competing visual, like bold colors. That's where you can get yourself into some trouble for sure. All right. So next up on the gold, so we mix some Tenaire yellow, excuse me, add in some of the base color to that. That's also where a lot of grays and browns come in. Grays and browns tend to just naturally not compete. You know, they're very muted, neutral tones, and so they don't really compete with the other colors on your model. So you can just have a couple bold colors and have lots of variations of grays and browns and things like that that don't add visual interest but not really compete with your other colors. So if you kind of look at the way that I did this, and I think it looks pretty convincing. So the bright part is kind of along this spot right here. Bright coming down from the end meeting here, so you got kind of two bright spots next to each other. Bright on top of the pommel, bright moving this direction and on top, and then coming from there and along there. So that's what I'm going to mimic again with this. Just like with the other ones, there's going to be glazing involved, so while I'm going to try to make my layers fairly smooth, I'm not going to be worried about a perfectly smooth blend. Just worrying more about getting the color where I want it. Lasers are awesome. They fix all sorts of problems. I swear they're like magic. And I really kick myself that it took me so long, my painting career, to learn how to do them. That was a mistake. I was sitting on my foot and now it's asleep, and that's gonna hurt in a minute. So I'm looking for Nakar. It's like a light gray color. Not that you guys can help me find it. There we go. So this is the next in the sword. The blade itself. Guess I don't need too much of it. Back to the gold. So next highlight is just straight Tenere yellow. Kind of follow the reflections we did before, but leave a little bit of the previous layer there. sword, flipping back and forth. Add a little bit of white to the Nakar. And for the last highlight on the gold, what color is that? That is, they just put the number in the book instead of the paint name. I'm trying to remember what it is. Yes, white sands. Just a slightly off-white color, a little bit of yellow tone to it. Alright, so I have all of the highlight areas established. So here's what I'm going to do, because I was contemplating stopping the stream at this point, because I actually haven't eaten dinner yet. We have stuff in the crock pot and we got a little late start in getting it cooked. So it's ready any time now. So I was going to stop the stream, but I'm going to paint just a little bit longer. I want to show you. I'm going to do the intermediate glazes here. And then we'll probably start the next stream with the shading on the metal parts. So what I'm doing is I'm going back to the base coat of each of these colors. What did you miss? You just missed me establishing all the highlight spots on the sword and the handle. Now we've got like a pork roast in the crock pot. Good stuff. All right, so I'm going to take the base coat and I'm going to start glazing back away from those highlight spots. So this is kind of a combination of a glaze and a shade. It's not so dark because it's really just the base coat, but it is darker than those highlight spots. So I'm pulling away from where those highlight areas are. The idea is that you're going to use these glazing passes to smooth out the transition from your base coat up to those highlight spots. Junk in my paint or something. I think it partially dried in the well, so there was a little bit of dried paint. So basically just going to kind of go back and forth between the gold. And the blade. And if need be, you can come back and reestablish some of those really, really bright highlight spots later. It's okay if we lose a little bit of that. You can come back in and put little bright reflection points and And so what you should be seeing is you should be seeing some of those transitions mellow. That yellow color is going to get a little less yellow and a little bit more of like a brassy, bronzy color. Getting near the point where maybe one more pass. Then I'm going to have to start switching to a shade tone to get things blended more. And like usual, did not get as far as I thought I was going to get in 2 hours. I thought I would get him done. He's close. Just going to have the shading on the metal, which won't take too long. And then he says right after, he says he never gets as far as he intends to. And then do the little buttons on him. And then he's pretty much done. Except, like I said, I'm going to go back in and do the war paint on him, I believe. Give it a shot on these guys. So I'm going to stop it there. So we've got all those highlights. We've got the transitions glazed over. Just have to do the shading on the weapon, clean up a few spots, and then he's done. Got to glaze over this guy's hair. Also do the little buttons and straps and things like that, the little buckles, and do his weapon. And then we are done. Oh, I got to do his eyes as well. As I said I would show you how to do those eyes after the fact. But yeah, that's where we're going to wrap it up for today. Said unless rock climbing gets canceled tomorrow, it won't be tomorrow night. I'll do a stream on Saturday. If you are watching this and you definitely want to make it, and you have a time that works best for you, you can just let me know. You can tweet at me or send me a message or something. I'll try to accommodate you guys. I'll let you know Saturday morning when things are looking like I'm going to be able to stream. We'll get these guys all finished up, and then, then we'll pick a new project after that. I might have to take a week or two off, catch up on some crazy work stuff, but we'll have a fun project after that to paint. But anyway, have a great night, everybody. Happy Friday. I will see you next time.